What made you instantly end a friendship? She started using me as an alibi when cheating on her husband. Didn't even ask me first. Not that I would have agreed to it. It was so audacious. And her husband was a super nice guy that I really enjoyed hanging out with. And she ruined that friendship too by using me as her alibi. A girl I was friends with threatened to call the company I work for and make up something I didn't do to get me fired because I refused to take a day off to spend time with her after a breakup. Although I offered to come over after work multiple days, I took a screenshot of her threat and told her I'd go straight to the police if she actually did that. He was a junkie. His family had cut him off and cut him out. I'd driven him to rehab twice. The last time he got out of rehab he had nowhere to go, so I said he could move in with me until he could find somewhere to live. Things were going well for him. Out of the blue I got called away for work. I was gone for a week. When I got back, everything in my apartment was gone, except for my guitar, which was my great grandfather's and grandfather's before it was mine. At least he left me that. I never heard from again. He's dead now. I had a job where there was a good social aspect and we regularly went out for drinks together. A new guy started and turned up at some of these get-togethers unannounced, which wasn't a massive problem, but I didn't notice that over time fewer people were coming out until he was just turning up at my house almost every evening to drink and smoke weed. After a year or so I had to have surgery to have half a lung removed. A week after discharge he was texting telling me I should be getting out there again and trying to get me to go to the pub. I was literally on morphine and recovering from major surgery. A week after that the texts and calls became threatening, accusatory, and eventually revealed that he had been telling people that I was faking the whole thing for attention. The last message I received from him was stop telling lies about me. I'm asking you politely once. Next time you best watch your back. I'd not left the house or interacted with anyone who knew him as I'd barely left my bed. Dude was literally making threats based on his own delusions. I'd already tried to reduce contact as he'd get drunk and start talking about how he kicked in his neighbor's door because they were walking around in the flat upstairs in the middle of the night and other such stories of an extremely antisocial personality. My brother came to pay me a visit after spending the entire day with my girlfriend. It was time to see my brother, as we hadn't seen each other in quite some time. We made some snacks and are set to begin playing Lotta, which we both enjoy. She dialed my number and had a lengthy phone conversation with me. I mentioned that my brother is waiting for me, and she responded that I'm not allowed to spend my time with anyone else since it belongs to her. It was the last time the two of us spoke. She was flying to Ireland to meet some guy she'd become friends with online and wanted me to come with her so she wouldn't be alone on the flight. I said sure, why not? I love traveling and I also don't want you to get murdered. The guy turned out to be both real and very nice, but she spent the entire time we were there putting me down in front of him to look cool. I didn't even like the guy. I was living with my boyfriend, but she was so threatened for some reason. By the second day of getting mocked relentlessly, I was like, screw it, and spent the rest of the trip exploring Dublin on my own. Once we got home, she and I had a conversation where I basically told her I don't think either of us thought that went well and never talked to her again. She kept cutting me down. Now, I was a very overweight person, and I knew it, but she kept letting me know it. Like, she said she loved to go with me to the mall because if I was there, then no guys would bother us. I was too naive and lonely to see how terrible she was. Well, over the span of a few years, I lost 100 lbs. She did not like this and was even meaner to me. I met a guy and she tried to steal him from me. It didn't work. We are no longer friends. Here's the thing. She was only about 20 pounds smaller than me when I was fat. She didn't see herself that way, though. She invited this guy she was chatting with to come hang out with us one day. She had a long-term boyfriend while I was newly single. This guy and I really hit it off, so we started to spend more time together. When she found out, she got so mad. She told me that I stole my backup guy. Her boyfriend dumped her shortly after, and she demanded I stop talking to him. so that she could start dating him as she had previously planned, insisting that he was her soulmate. I stopped talking to her instead and so did he. That was 20 years ago, and we are still together. 15 years of marriage and 2 kids. Guess he wasn't her soulmate after all. I've been married for 6 years. She started out thinking she only had occasional bouts of sadness and anxiety, but things quickly spiraled out of control. When she threatened to stab me in my sleep, I moved away. We had already been a number of couples and individual therapists, but she would not accept medicine. I contacted her to arrange a meeting and try to get some closure, but she cut me off, saying I wasn't permitted to leave her and that she was punishing herself by sleeping with 2 other men. I simply ignored her phone number and filed for divorce at that moment. I hope she's doing well, but I'm pleased I'm not in danger. This was many years ago. I was still in high school, so somewhere around 94. I had this surplus waterproof ammo can that I liked. It was spun aluminum. I kept loose change in it. I suppose it probably had about $60 worth of change. I showed it to my buddy when he stayed at my house overnight because I thought the can was cool. In the morning, my dad was giving him a ride home. I noticed that the can was gone. I said to my friend, "Did you see where the ammo can went?" He said no. I said, "Did you take it?" He said no. I said, "If you need the money, you can keep the money. I just want the can." He ran away to my dad's car and left. I never trusted the guy again. My parents still talk to him sometimes. I refuse to. I want my can back. It's not like it was that expensive. It was just a weird thing that you can't buy anymore. Keep in mind that this friend also had me transport illegal substances for him unknowingly, and that didn't bug me as much as a stupid ammo can. After an argument, my now ex-wife stormed into the living room, where I was sleeping on the couch, and lunged at me. She inquired as to if she reminded me of my stepfather, who used to come into my room at night and stand over me before dragging me out of bed by my ankles. He'd then stomp on me for whatever transgressions I'd committed that day. She was the only person with whom I had ever spoken about it. She left town for work 2 days later, and when she returned, I was gone and in a different state. The amount of abuse I had endured up to that moment was incredible. It finally occurred to me. The amount of abuse I had endured up to that moment was incredible. It occurred to me at that point that if he had returned to my life, I would not have allowed him to hurt me, so there was no reason for me to allow her to abuse me. There was a guy I met in college who was one of the funniest individuals I have ever met in my life. He was super quick and his humor was insanely in sync with mine. We had all these plans. We were gonna do some projects together. One day, we're in one of our classes, and I noticed he had a little flag pin on his jacket. I said to him, "What's with the pin? Is it like a nautical thing?" To me, it looked like the flags that you would see on a Swatch watch. You know, the kind that they hang from the boat in yachting. So he replies, "Oh, that's the South African flag." I'm a little bit suspicious, so I ask him cautiously, "Oh, are you from South Africa?" And he says, "No, but I had really admire the country. They really know how to keep their *GGERS in their place." I reply with, "Oh man, we can't hang out anymore." He looked at me and asked incredulously, "What? Because I don't like black people you don't want to hang out anymore?" To which I replied, "Yes, that's pretty much it in a nutshell," and never spoke a single word to that dude ever again. A combination of things. Honestly, I'd get extremely anxious if I was told that he was hanging out with the rest of us because he wanted things to go exactly as he planned, and he'd be upset if it wasn't. He'd usually end up pinning the blame on me and then constantly joke throughout the entire time about how I effed things up, and I'd just have to go along with it. He'd constantly flake on everyone without saying a word, but if you had to cancel on him, he'd get extremely upset at you. One of my friends used the exact same excuse on him that he'd typically use on us after the fact, and he got mad. His family was pretty well off, while the rest of our families were working class families. He expected us to spend money as if we had the same amount of money his family did, and he'd get upset if you didn't. He felt like he had the right to monitor all of my social media accounts and to bring up comments made on said social media accounts as he wished. He'd bring up Reddit comments I made anonymously because I didn't feel comfortable talking about those topics IRL on sites where I'd have my actual name slash face attached to them. He'd wait for me to post anything and then make snarky, unfunny comments for the sole purpose of making me look bad. I ended up having to block him on everything and deleting that Reddit account. Whenever we'd play games together, if he was more skilled than I was, he'd make jokes about how bad I was and how I couldn't do anything right, which were really just thinly veiled insults. If I got upset, he'd tell me to calm down because he was only joking. Ended that friendship after 7 years, but it honestly ended 6 years later than it should. I was truly concerned about my safety. I went over and we got into a fight, so I basically slept on the floor. I went to the washroom to text one of my friends to come get me, since I thought she had passed out. My phone made a noise when I received a text from her asking, "Where are you?" When I awoke and opened the bathroom door, she was already standing there in the dark, waiting for me. She didn't say anything and simply gazed at me till I passed by. I returned to my original spot on the floor, crawled under the blanket, and feigned to sleep until she did. I peeked out from behind the blankets after about 30 minutes and she was virtually towering above me in total darkness, her eyes wide open the entire time. I was able to get out of there in such a short amount of time. Back in high school, my best friend, let's call her Olga, and I had a crush on the same guy. Let's call him Sam. Sam was a flirt and was playing both of us without us knowing. Eventually one day, he chose Olga to ask out and cut ties with me. As a good friend, I didn't make a big fuss about it, and although I was heartbroken, I respected their relationship. Olga was from an extremely Christian family, so she was not allowed to date in high school, which meant she had to keep her new relationship a secret. One day after school, I was home minding my business when Olga's mom shows up at my house. She was angry and was screaming at my mom saying I was a lesbian and had corrupted her daughter. I had no idea why she was freaking out as I had done nothing. Come to find out, my best friend was making out with Sam and he left her a huge hickey on her neck. She tried to hide it from her family, but they eventually found out and demanded to ask her where she got that. And this girl had the audacity, more like stupidity, to say that I had done that to her, that I bit her neck. Yeah, as if that makes it any better. Her mom of course thought this meant we were lesbians and came to my house to confront me and out me to my mom. I have never laughed so damn hard in my life when the mom told me the story, and my best friend left me no choice but to let her mom in on her secret relationship with this douche. After that I never talked to her again, and everyone in the school eventually found out, which left her with a horrible reputation. Funny thing is, because Sam didn't choose me, literally a week later I met the guy who is now my fiancé. We have been together 7 years and will be getting married fall of 2023.